Oh man, why am I showing you the chart for the Hong Kong index? As you can see here, the Hang Seng index is spiking up 4.21%, allowing Bitcoin and many altcoins to run. Bitcoin up 2.7% today here, but more importantly, bouncing from a critical level. Who would have thought that the unlikely hero was once somebody who hated Bitcoin in Asia, right? China and now Hong Kong, allowing Bitcoin to run. We're going to cover off exactly what's going on, what is the narrative behind this, and also, is this a meaningful bounce, or are we going to get caught on a move back down to the downside? Don't forget to smash the likes, don't forget to subscribe, check out the links in the description to BYBIT and BitGet, the two platforms I use to trade. If you want to trade in these moves, you can do so using the link in the description. But first, obviously, watch the TA course, ijaz.uk/TA. Now, what have we got here, guys? We said this was a critical level. The bears came back down, pushed us into our EMA river, but Bitcoin is looking strong, guys. When you take the emotion out of it, when you take off the week of pain here, if you just went on holiday for that week and came back, you would say, I would take that. That is really good. We've got a higher high. Here's a high. Here's a higher high. We've got a low. And so far, it looks like we're creating that higher low. We're nice and here. We're nice and upward trending here. And that's really good for Bitcoin. I mean, you need to actually internalize what has happened. We ran from 15,500. We came all the way up here to the 20,000 region, consolidated for a couple of days, went on another move, consolidated for a bit, came back down, pushed up again. I mean, this is such good strength by Bitcoin, and all of that not even coming down here to use all of its EMA ribbon. I said to you guys, I'm more than comfortable for this to come down to the 22,000 range. Then it starts to get interesting, right? But the fact that we've managed to start turning around now is really, really positive. But we need to do more. And I'm going to explain why this could be a hidden risk. But first, we need to understand, why is this happening? Well, it's happening because there was upbeat China manufacturing data. Yes, there was fears that there could be a global slowdown, but China have gone ahead and produced some amazing manufacturing purchases figures. 52.6 in February, and that's the fastest in over a decade, okay? Any reading above 50 on this index shows an expansion versus the opposite, a contraction of economic activity. Non-manufacturing PMI rose to 56.3 from January's 54.4, okay? So this is really positive news. It's lifting the risk on appetite. US markets in the pre-market are green thanks to this as well. I mean, if we take a look at the pre-market here, you can see that the major indices here, NASDAQ 0.4% up, 0.3 on the S&P, and the Dow Jones 0.21. And this is just in sympathy for what's going on over the other side of Asia, okay? Now, you're seeing the US dollar index falling as well. We're going to come on to that shortly as well. But this is really, really interesting. If we look at this, liquidity continues to be a huge offset to the tightening in rates. We cover this off. I'll link the video up here saying, could China be the savior? We're so far seeing that. We're seeing lackluster performance from the US, huge volatility, which is what we expected as they try to continue to fight the inflation narrative. But over in China, they are still printing. They're still increasing liquidity, okay? So you've got the Fed in the US and all the European banks hoovering up money from the economy, but China are still stimulating. And remember, Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin is agnostic to the fact of whether it's China or US or Europe. It just wants to know, is risk rotating on? Is there excess capital or is there not? So the fact that it's being printed from China is hugely positive for Bitcoin. Liquidity continues to be a huge offset, predominantly coming from the East. China continues to pump cash to maintain adequate liquidity in the banking system and to spark economic growth post-COVID-0. With Hong Kong viewed as a trial ground for the mainland, the possibility for the vast sums of retail wealth to flow into crypto will maintain a positive sentiment offset to US-driven FUD. Very interesting narrative going on here. We obviously got the backdrop of Hong Kong now easing their situation for crypto. Could that just be the test ground? Right? Hong Kong wouldn't ease it if they didn't get the nod from mainland. And if mainland want to use Hong Kong as the trial ground, maybe that means a more widespread mainland adoption is to come once they prove the concept in Hong Kong. Very interesting. Bitcoin needs to do a big move here. So I need to make this very clear. We've created this higher low, but what this now means is there's pressure on Bitcoin. And the pressure for Bitcoin will now be to go post its higher high. And that's not going to be easy, guys. We got rejected from this candle at a high of 25,288. Just here where my cursor is. Okay, so Bitcoin now on this leg has to go past and break through this level. Just like when we bounced from our EMA ribbon here, we had to go create the higher high, and we did it. Because otherwise, if we don't, what happens is you start to lose steam. If we do something like this, fail to get to that 25,000 level, start dropping back down here, we will start to lose some strength, and the bears will take advantage of that and push us to the downside. And why can we not afford that? Well, the reason we can't afford that is because I need to remind you of what the weekly chart looks like. Still in favor of the bears. We cannot afford to lose steam right now. We've done so much good work running into the EMA ribbon, getting to that final bit at that 25, 26,000 level just to break the EMA ribbon bullish again. We do not want to get rejected from here. So we need a nice strong week to come in, and we need to start working our way to close this weekly EMA ribbon bullish again. That's the main battle here. Once we clear this level, look, once we bring out the VPVR, once we clear this volume level here, things become a lot easier for the bullish move. So I'm not completely bullish on this next leg until we close this weekly candle above. And in order for that to happen, the daily chart needs to go and post a higher high, needs to get above that level here at 25,200 and go post a higher high. So the pressure is now on Bitcoin. It's a nice bounce from the EMA ribbon, but the pressure is on. Let's now take a look at some of the altcoins as well. Let's kick off with Phantom, up 8.6%, absolutely rocketing here. But you need to understand, we spoke about this yesterday. Phantom yesterday closed below its EMA ribbon. So this is super critical for Phantom here to get this bullish engulfing candle. That's why you're seeing such a huge pump right now. It's moving in exaggerations, right? Because when Bitcoin was moving, Phantom moved so high to the upside. Similarly, when Bitcoin pulls back, Phantom's going to pull back a lot more, right? So now you're seeing it start to move to the plus side. Now that Bitcoin's up 2.7%, it's moving close to 9% here. Needs to hold its EMA ribbon and needs to work its way up. It's got hard work to do as well. Just like Bitcoin needs to post a higher high, you can see how Phantom posted lower highs. It needs to go and work its way back up to 65. That's not going to be easy. It set itself such a high target when it ran all the way up here on February the 3rd, up to the highs of 65. So it's got a lot of work to do here. Let's take a look at some other altcoins which are moving. MATIC up 5%. Again, trying its best to hold its EMA ribbon. And it's all relying on Bitcoin. The fact that Bitcoin is doing it and doing it so far above its EMA ribbon is showing how much relative strength there is in Bitcoin versus many of the altcoins. The altcoins are simply moving on Bitcoin. This is not an altcoin season where altcoins are outperforming Bitcoin. No, they're waiting for direction from Bitcoin to say, where are we heading? Is risk on? Is it off? Let's take a look at Aptos. Aptos up 12% as well. Can't understand that, guys. Optimism bouncing here up 4% as well. And also a lot of the layer 2 narratives on Bitcoin, right? I posted a thread on Twitter, so make sure you go read that on some of the positives and negatives around scaling Bitcoin as a layer 2 solution on Bitcoin. But also I give some examples of other projects other than Stacks, which you may not have heard about. So this is super, I'm not chasing this right now here on Stacks. I certainly wouldn't be, because you got to remember, if the whole narrative around NFTs on Bitcoin starts to fade out or dissipate, this is going to tank, right? So you need to be very careful chasing this when it's extended from its EMA ribbon. Wait till you get a bit of a sell-off, and then if you still like the project, if you're still bullish on layer 2s on Bitcoin, if ordinals continue to do well, then buy it. Don't just buy in at peak FOMO on some of these projects. You've also got VELO here moving as well, coming down, didn't even touch its EMA ribbon, but getting a nice strong candle here, up 18%. But remember, yesterday was a 22% down day, so don't be surprised to see some people buying the dip here, which is allowing us to be up 18% on VELO. Other than that, we need to take a look at the all-important dollar index, because this is what's been causing our pain over the last few weeks, and this is now what's taking a fall today. So we need to understand the dollar index has done a really tremendous job. I mean, if you look at it, we were in a hugely extended downward trend for a very long period of time. That's what's allowed Bitcoin to have a really good January. But in February, the dollar index said, hang on a second, we're going to start appearing again. And so the dollar index throughout February has reared its head, and it pumped about 4.4%, which is a lot for the dollar index. Now, we know why this has happened. This happened because of the bad January CPI. It happened because of the January PPI and the PCE and the jobs figures. We've been monitoring that day to day. But the question is now going to be this. Will all those things I just listed, the inflation figures, the rest of the macroeconomic woes, will they get better using the February data, which we're going to find out now in this month of March? That is what we need to understand. Was January just a flash in the pan, some negative numbers with seasonal adjustment, and then we're going to get back on track? Because if we are, Bitcoin can carry on its momentum. This could just be a blip by the dollar index, and on we go to carry on moving it back down to the downside. That's what we need to look out for. So still all to play for. What we don't want to see from the dollar index is we don't just want this coming to test here and then off it goes again, right? That is not what we want. Then we're going to get called out on a trap, because if dollar index does that, then the equivalent of that for Bitcoin is Bitcoin coming up here, doing this, and then going back down again. So we do not want that because they're inversely correlated. So we need risk to remain on. But what's powerful is the risk is actually, the reason dollar index is showing some weakness and the reason it's having this down day is not because risk is rotating on in the US. No, you can see the pre-market wasn't too excited for the US. It's because of the Asia markets. It's because of the Chinese markets. It's because of the manufacturing numbers. It's because they're still easing liquidity and printing money to incentivize growth in their economies. So now we're understanding that it's not just US. We can sometimes get caught up because Bitcoin has been, for the last 18 months or so, very correlated to the NASDAQ, very correlated to the US markets. But now we're starting to see this other dimension where the monetary policies of these countries are not moving in the same direction. On the one side, you've got Europe and the US tightening, and on the other side, you've got China and some of the Asian markets continuing to be accommodative. And so that flow, Bitcoin has to take a look at the big picture holistically and decide when to be risk on and when to be risk off. And that is why if you're trading, be very, very careful. You're seeing steady growth periods during the Asian markets, but then when US markets are open, which is most of the time when we're making our videos and awake, you're seeing the market being very volatile, which is what expected. Okay, so be very careful when you're trading intraday. But in terms of a long-term position, this is why we're starting to see signs of decoupling. But we've got to be patient. We've got to see over a number of weeks and going into now the rest of March, does that decoupling continue? But more importantly, will the US macro data start to come back in line? If it does, then don't worry about January's data. It was an anomaly. Feb's data back in line, and we can carry on bringing inflation down. No worries on CPI, no worries on PPI. All the people here who are pricing in 50 basis points will start dissipating. They'll price in 25 basis points, and on we go, right? That's what we want to see. The negative situation is the opposite. Data comes out, still horrible, inflation still high, it's entrenched, it's sticky, we need to do 50 basis points at the end of March, and then we're going to see some red in the market as more people price in 50 basis points at the next meeting. That is what we're seeing here in this market. How are you playing this market currently? Are you in and out? Are you all about? Are you just patiently DCAing and looking to build your portfolio over time? Don't forget to go watch the TA course, ijaz.uk/TA. Go watch this video here on an altcoin, which I'm starting to lose trust in. Plus, I'm going to link up the video to the Sam Bankman-Fried update. If you've not watched that, go watch that. Hopefully justice will prevail, and I'll see you in the next one.